when they tell you you can't do the only thing that you have ever done and you don't know how to do anything else, I am not a mechanic. I'm one of those guys that can take a simple oil change and turn it into a $200 repair bill. No problem, okay? I'm a communicator. It's what I do. I started out in music. I was a singer for years. And from that, I got into the speaking ministry and teaching, and from there into pastoring. And it just kind of evolved, and God brought that. But everything I've ever done to make a living was connected to my ability to communicate, and suddenly my toolbox is gone. I had lost my voice to a virus, and for 3 years I was told I would not be able to do what I'm doing with you right now. I saw over 200 specialists from all over the world. They all arrived at the same conclusion: the nerve damage to my vocal cords was so extensive that there would be no recovery. I was so sick. My church prayed for me and sent me home and told me to go get well. Well, I stayed in bed for about 10 days with the flu. Now, everybody in here, once you've had the flu, when you get it the second time, you know what it is. And you also understand that when you get the flu, if you go to the doctor, you'll get over it in about 7 days. If you don't go, it takes about a week. For those of you from Penn State, that's the same thing. Okay? I called a doctor friend of mine in Houston, and I asked him to see me. He's an ENT, and he agreed to see me. And when he got me in the office, he tried to scope my throat. And he could not even get a scope down my throat because it was swollen almost completely shut. He tried also to do some blood tests and figure out what was wrong with me, and the blood test did work. They could always get the needle in the arm. Whether they could get the scope down the throat, that worked. Did the blood test, came back, told me I had an infection that was really horrible in my bronchi. So he put me on some medication for that, put me on some steroids to reduce the swelling in my throat, and sent me home for another 10 days and told me to come back and see him at the end of that time. When I went back to him, he told me that the swelling was gone, which I could tell from the feeling in my throat. He told me that the infection was cleared. I figured that because all of that raw feeling when you've got that horribly sore throat, that was all gone. But I was left with a pressure in my throat. And the only way I know to describe that pressure is to tell you to grab your windpipe and squeeze it. And if you do, that's what I sounded like. And that's what it felt like in my throat for the next 3 years of my life. How many of you know what an object lesson is? You know what an object lesson is? An object lesson is when you use something concrete to teach an abstract concept. Example, how would you explain to someone who is hearing for the very first time, have never been able to hear, and for the first time they're hearing, how would you explain music? Well, the best way is to go over and go, that's not music. But short fingers, that's music. It's a chord. You can, by example, illustrate an abstract concept, music.
And we are to have hope. We are never to lose hope. And when we think everything is dead, that's when He's about to do something exciting.
By the way, I come from Houston, Texas. It was all I could do not to wear my Love You Blue shirt tonight, I have to tell you. We've never forgiven you, so you just need to know that. And for those of you that are too young to remember, it's okay. Coming from Texas, people look at me and say, I thought everything was bigger in Texas. I did too. That's why I moved there. When I said to the Sunday school class, I began to comment on that verse in Psalm 103. And I said, you have had, and I have had in times past, pit experiences. And it was on that word pit that God stepped in.
I have had, and you have had in times past, pit experiences. We've all had times when our life seemed to be in a pit, in a grave, and we didn't have an answer for the pit we find ourselves in. And I don't understand this right now. I'm a bit overwhelmed at the moment. I'm not quite sure what to say or do. Sounds funny to say, a loss for words.